All right, good afternoon. Scott Luton here with you live on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome back to the show. On today's show, we're continuing our Supply Chain City series where we dive into a variety of supply chain stories with roots right here in Atlanta. But regardless where you work, live, or play, we're offering news, ideas, best practices, and really some of the neatest stories taking place in the global world of end-to-end supply chain. Quick programming note, like all of our series on Supply Chain Now Radio, you can find our replays on a variety of channels, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, really wherever else you get your podcast from. As always, we'd love to have you subscribe so you don't miss anything. All right, really quick, let's thank our sponsors that allow us to bring these best practices and innovative ideas to you, our audience, the Effective Syndicate, Verusen, Vector Global Logistics, Talent Stream, and many more. You can check out each of our sponsors on the show notes of this episode. Okay, so let's welcome in my featured co-host here today, Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur, chronic disruptor, trusted advisor. Greg, how you doing?
I am doing great. How are you doing, Scott?
Been fantastic. Great week. What is it? It feels like Friday, but it's Tuesday, and we've had a great earlier show with a Midwestern entrepreneur doing big things, and I'm looking forward to this conversation here today.
Yeah, likewise. It's always good to have the Supply Chain City crew in the house.
The mayor of Supply Chain City, Ben Harris, director, Supply Chain Ecosystem Expansion with the Metro Atlanta Chamber. Also, as you mentioned, part of the Supply Chain City crew.
Yeah.
Ben, how you doing?
Doing very well. It's always good to be back.
It is.
Show everybody your new jewelry.
Oh, gosh. Since we have video now, yes.
That's right.
The new hardware, yes.
Yeah.
What's funny is one of the last shows that we're about to publish that you were on, someone made a joke about newly married, and it went completely over my head. So congratulations officially from your Supply Chain Now Radio family.
It's good to be married.
Okay, so that's Greg and Ben, my co-hosts. Let's welcome in our featured guests here today, Rick McDonald, Vice President, Global Operations at Clorox. Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. I appreciate you guys having me today.
You bet. I'm excited to dive into some of the neat things that the Clorox company is up to and get you to weigh in on your supply chain insights, especially from a global perspective. And, of course, a longtime friend of the show that's vying for most appearances.
Yeah, with Elba.
Yeah. That's right. It comes with a heavyweight title belt, too.
Oh, well then.
Paul Noble, founder and CEO at Verusen. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back.
Great to have you. And for our audience, we are broadcasting from Sandia, the Supply Chain Innovation Center here at King Plow. And King Plow is a 19th century plow manufacturing facility that was repurposed in the late 80s, early 90s. Well,
and that's what you hear right now. It's further repurposing.
I was going to say the key word there is repurpose.
That's right.
Yes. So we're big fans of protecting these facilities and repurposing them. We're in the middle of a roof renovation, so that sound you hear is progress.
We can verify that it needed a roof because of the buckets placed various places around the suite.
Well, we love King Plow, and we love Sandia and our friends Vector Global Logistics who host us here. So, okay. So before we dive in with Rick and Paul and interview both of these gentlemen, let's see what's going on from the Supply Chain Now Radio news desk, but it's more about stories and developments, right, Greg?
Yeah. So it's not what you need to know.
There you go.
Whenever you hear it, you still need to know it. So it's not just about now. Well, you want me to go first?
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
Lead off hitter.
So this is really interesting. John Deere announced that they are keeping their inventory low. So they are keeping their inventory to sales ratio, or for those of us in the industry, turns, at the lowest ratio in 5 years. And this is an interesting dynamic. So usually when you have good news, the CEO delivers it. And when you have bad news, the CFO delivers it. But this was on an earnings call with their CFO, Ryan Campbell, last Wednesday. And I think that is an indicator of how things are sort of going and what they expect. They expect to do additional cost cutting into 2020. And I think we're going to go into undeniably some sort of temporary dip in the economy. It happens,
That's
right?
what we're
here. And there's nothing to be particularly concerned about. It's just time. We've been on a 12-year tear economically, so it's just time to draw back a little bit. But anyway, they are pulling back their inventories and planning for some additional cost cutting into 2020. More detail we can go into, but I think it's what's important is that John Deere is kind of a leading indicator of where things are going in the country.
Agreed.
So, you got something?
No, I was going to say I hear the same thing about Caterpillar. It's like they source from so many different places all over the world as well. It's had such a complex supply chain when it comes to that. So it makes a lot of sense. But now I was going to add just about the the drive-in e-commerce right now. Here it is. We just had Cyber Monday now, so figured something around the holidays would be appropriate this time.
Yeah.
So here's your number of the day. This is from a Paul Page. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have already read this morning. You get the daily download there. But $9.2 billion. Wow. That is the estimated Cyber Monday spending by U.S. consumers, according to Adobe Analytics. That's 16.5% more than the $7.9 billion spent a year ago.
And that's higher than they were expecting, isn't it? You know what's interesting?
Well, I think that's I'm not sure if that was today's or yesterday's. If it was forecast or if that's the actual number. Because if it's actual, I'd love to hear if this is it or if there is an updated number.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that is that number continues to climb on Cyber Monday, but the deals continue to spread out. I don't know if you get email, you've been getting email for the last 2 weeks with here's our Black Friday or here's our Cyber Monday deal. Go ahead and buy it now.
Or here it is Tuesday, and they're still doing Cyber Monday deals.
It's Cyber Week.
I think $4 billion of that number was driven by one household in Walton County. If Amanda was on her toes. So,
I wonder what the top item was.
That's a good question.
Nothing jumps out at me.
No.
Anyone else?
Probably something electronic, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Good Morning America and Oprah, they haven't released their top gifts of the season just yet, so that's forthcoming pretty soon. So not to say that's going to be the best-selling item, but those things do. They better have some inventory on hand. Yeah, for sure.
This is a really interesting year too. So being a retailer, the number of days between Thanksgiving and Christmas is always really important. We have 6 fewer days between Thanksgiving and Christmas this year than we had last year. That's as far as it can go, by the way. So 32 days between Thanksgiving and Christmas last year, 26 this year. And the way that I know that is because I'm an educated retailer. No, because my wife made us buy the Christmas tree early because it wasn't gonna be up for long enough if we didn't have it before Thanksgiving.
And that was probably a driver for the marketing to come out as early as it did. I started seeing Black Friday stuff on middle of October.
I was going to say, it seemed
like the preview of the preview of Black Friday.
Yeah, before Halloween.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I guess the CEO also dictates Christmas tree buying patterns too, right?
Everything. She dictates everything. Yeah.
That's so funny you mentioned that. That was the story I was going to do as my second story. It was actually the late. The crunch basically this year from the amount of days that we just don't have. And it's funny because we all talked about it. We're like, I feel like Thanksgiving is a little bit later this year than usual, but that causes major supply chain crunch.
Yeah, the pressure on logistics is immense.
It's dramatic, right? It really is.
Well, if you remember, Ben, speaking of Christmas trees, like a year and some change ago, one of the news segments we tackled was a Christmas tree supply chain.
Yes,
and how there's so many fewer U.S.-based farms, which is adding a lot more lead time, which might be why we're seeing some of these things so early. I don't know. Do y'all get fresh trees or do you use artificial?
Usually fresh.
Artificial.
Okay.
Actually over here. So I guess I'm the odd man out.
I mean, a lot of that. I'm a chronic disruptor. And a lot of what's happening is that because those trees take between 3 and 7 years to grow to the height, people are taking that land. And North Carolina is one of the top producers of Christmas trees, at least in this region. They're putting that land in hemp because in the last couple of years, hemp has become legal, right? We're making rope again.
Yep.
And you can harvest that crop multiple times rather than wait for Christmas trees, right? So I think we may see a push towards more artificial trees.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you guys.
Well, supply and demand.
Yeah, and you haven't experienced it yet, but I'll be interesting to hear your report on what's left in the marketplace when you actually buy your tree.
Late to the game.
Yeah,
that's right.
You could get one of those Charlie Brown trees.
Yes, or the Grinch would do down the stairs.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from Malcolm and the news team?
Nothing. No, I don't think anything else.
Well, I was just going to say, the last time that we had this crunch, basically, the way the calendar has turned out this year, that was back in 2013 when e-commerce was half as far from a demand standpoint of what it is now. So you talk about the demands and the strain that it causes on e-commerce with retailers. I mean, it's completely different ballgame these days.
Any numbers on how that's affected the brick and mortar output?
I have not seen yet, but that's a good question. We should get Malcolm on that for sure.
Yes. One of the projections I read was that brick and mortar shopping would be down about 20% this Black Friday versus prior years.
There you go.
Mid-50s to mid-30s.
Yeah.
So Tony Sciarrotta, the chairman of the Reverse Logistics Association, is a big Black Friday shopper.
Is he really?
Does that not surprise you? I mean, first of all, I have always despised Black Friday because I used to work in a retail store, and being on the other end of that is, anyway,
hellish.
And I hardly go out and shop for anything. So I'm guessing by the reactions, nobody here went out on Black Friday and shopping. Did you know anybody? Anyone in your household go?
Well, yeah, there's this whole opt-out. REI, the outdoor company, has been doing it for years where they're actually encouraging folks to get outdoors. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw this on Twitter, which means it's absolutely true.
Yes, certainly.
Is that they give their employees a paid day off on Black Friday. So which you really need to see.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in. I'm really excited to hear we're going to start with Rick McDonald, VP Global Operations with the Clorox Company. And Rick, as we like to do on all of our featured guests, before we kind of talk shop and dive into your supply chain insights, we want to know more about Rick McDonald, the person. So tell us more about where you grew up and give us some anecdotes about, some stories about your upbringing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I grew up mostly here in Atlanta. As a kid, I was always involved in various sports, baseball, basketball, high school volleyball. So very competitive. Loved team sports. Also played piano and drums. I was a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. So, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's impressive, man.
Yeah. Went to school here at Georgia Tech, and when I got out, I went to work for Frito-Lay and spent about 10 years there in 5 different manufacturing facilities.
Wow.
And then for the last almost 28 years now, I've been at Clorox.
Wow, 28 years.
Indeed.
We featured a member of the Clorox team. It's been a little while, but it seems like there's a lot of tenured folks there. So it's part of the culture, right? You get good talent in, and you're in good companies like Clorox are able to kind of keep them, right?
Yeah, one of the things we'll talk about is we really believe that our people are our biggest advantage. And it's not just a slogan. We don't write it on our documents. We really try and live it every day. And the culture is what keeps people there. We also have a lot of people who boomerang. They'll go and see an opportunity, and they'll run for something they think is more interesting. A couple of years later, many of them are back. And I think that's a great testament to the culture that we have and the way we work together.
I think it's cool that you're open to bringing them back. Also, a lot of companies, it's kind of like, hey, you left. That's it, But I think that's awesome that you guys are okay with them going and getting some other experience out there and saying, you know what, I'd like to bring that back.
I'm not sure we're okay with it because there is a cost
we don't
to that.
Prefer it,
but the point is, if someone has done a good job while they were there, they leave in the right way, and they have an interest in coming back, and we have an opportunity that fits their skills and expertise, we'll entertain that.
There you go.
So going back to you were talking about all the different activities you were enjoyed doing as you were growing up. What was your favorite? What was out of all those? I mean, from music to sports, what was your favorite?
My number one love was basketball.
Was it?
Yeah,
mine too.
Love that sport. Played pickup until I was in my 40s, and then my back said stop, and so I did. But great sport.
And let's talk about Frito-Lay spent how many years at Frito-Lay prior to Clorox?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
In supply chain functions?
Always in manufacturing, 5 different manufacturing plants over the 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you see when you're at large companies like Frito-Lay or Clorox or some of the other that have multiple manufacturing plants across the globe, some of them are able to really maintain a cohesive culture. And then you see other companies where each single plant has its own culture and they can be very disparate. What was your, working in 5 plants through Frito-Lay, what was it like?
The plants were very similar. Frito was all about best practices. They were all about consistency and commonality from the technology to the training to the employment methods to retention approaches and performance management. And so it was there was a lot of consistency from site to site to site.
Okay, so fast forward now back to the Clorox company where you've been now 28 years. That's a feat in and of itself. What do you do in your current role?
So my current role, I'm responsible for our global operations group. It's about, the company's got 800 employees, about 5,000 of them are in my shop. Manufacturing, contract manufacturing, planning and logistics, engineering, quality assurance, all the supply chain disciplines excepting sourcing.
Wow, 5,000?
Yeah.
Now, are you able to get out a good bit and see the different sites and facilities?
I do. I have a real belief that you have to be out in the field. It's really hard to run a supply chain from behind a desk, and so the travel internationally is always interesting and always a great chance to see what's happening in other parts of the world and things that we can rip and reapply here.
Yeah, absolutely. Benchmarking.
Where are you producing around the world? I mean, what are your most common international destinations?
So Latin America, we have plants throughout Latin America.
Okay.
We have joint ventures in the Middle East. We've got a couple of manufacturing plants in Asia and a number of contract manufacturers in the Asian region.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, so everyone's familiar with the Clorox company and many of the products. Probably plenty of us here have them in our houses right to sitting here today. But what are some of the things that folks may not know about the Clorox company that might surprise them?
Well, a couple things. First of all, we don't make a big deal of this, but we donate in either cash or products or volunteer hours over $20 million in communities around the world each year.
Wow.
And we're pretty proud of that. We've got a really good culture of people giving outside of work. And so that's one item. The second is we achieved all of our environmental goals, reduction in greenhouse gases, waste to landfill, ahead of our planned target. And in fact, we have 15 zero-to-waste factories, which we're excited about. And we just made a declaration we're going to reduce our plastic packaging by 50%.
Wow.
Over the course of the next 5 years.
So, Ben, we got to make sure we get Clorox nominated for the Sustainability Excellence Award, part of the 2020 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards.
Very true.
Which, quick departure, congrats to Verusen, Paul, for y'all's recent nomination
Thank you.
for the same program. All right, so let's pivot a little bit, Rick. Let's talk about executive education for supply chain leaders at Clorox. And for starters, why is this important?
Well, it's critical for all organizations, and certainly ours. There's a dearth of supply chain talent, especially at senior leader levels. And we know that we're going to win based on the quality of our people and how well we train them and how well we retain them. And so we were really looking at how do we plus up our approach to developing our more senior leaders in the supply chain so they could be good end-to-end thinkers and really understand kind of being a master of orchestration for the supply chain versus a discipline expert.
Where they become more big picture thinkers, and they can not, if you think about the end of the supply chain, whether it's procurement through production or through engineering, your product design and whatnot, into the production, into transportation, reverse logistics. It sounds like y'all are wanting more well-rounded leaders that may know, deeper or have deeper pockets of understanding across those functions. Is that?
Yeah, that's right, Scott. It's really about making sure that at the leadership level, a decision made at one point in the supply chain, you understand the implications throughout the supply chain. Sometimes you optimize in one part of the supply chain to the degradation of other parts, and we worked really hard to make sure that we see the entire end-to-end supply chain and make good choices that are positive throughout the supply chain.
Interesting. We not too long ago we interviewed Karin Agrawal, right, who's now with Dell. We graduated from Georgia Tech's ISYE program, engineering program, and he really talked about many of the reasons why millennials are perfect for supply chain, right? And one of the things he touched on, and one of the things we read, probably all of us have read a lot about, is how these generations coming into the workforce now want exactly what you described, which is that bigger picture, where they fit in upstream and downstream. And are you seeing that as well as y'all are bringing people on board?
Yeah, we are, and we've developed a few programs that are really trying to cater to those individuals who are coming into our organization as recent college graduates. We have a supply chain leadership development program. It's a 3-year rotational program. We started about 7 years ago. And most of the folks who started in the program, maybe 6 to 10 per year, have remained, and they're valuable contributors. So now they're learning how the organization works, and they're contributing across the supply chain at various locations. The first year of the program, is either a manufacturing or staff assignment. The second year is the opposite, and the third year is an assignment that we pick mutually. It fits their interests and their needs and the interests and needs that we have.
So we're going to dive deeper, a little bit more with Ben into overall talent development, supply chain talent development at the Clorox company. But before we leave that executive education, anything else that we might have missed that y'all are doing to continue to develop your senior leaders?
Yeah, 10 years ago, we do an engagement survey through Willis Towers Watson every year. And 10 years ago, we discovered this gap in developing our senior supply chain leaders. And my then SVP of supply chain grabbed me and said, let's go down and talk with Georgia Tech about seeing if we could develop a program. And we did. It's a strategy and leadership forum. It's a 2-week in residency program. We have 250 graduates so far, and this is plant manager, between the plant manager level and director level within our organization. We've invited other functions to come in and participate with us in these 2-week program. It's 22 modules. It's built on the strategy pillar, operations excellence, leadership and management, and applied technology, which is our sort of our clever way of saying we get free project management work out of them. So they're all assigned to a project team, and these are real projects, many of which we have activated. So it's been a fantastic thing for us in terms of developing that end-to-end thinking, having them think about the supply chain as an orchestrator.
Yes.
And really have the discipline to understand how things connect and what the implications of their actions are at one point in the supply chain on the rest of the supply chain.
Is that more valuable and important today with this global business world we live in, where you're not necessarily one department's not going to be 50 feet down the hall. It might be on the next continent, right, or the neighboring state. How important is that now more than ever before to understand the big picture?
Yeah, geographic dispersity has a lot to do with making this a really important thing, as does the pace. So the pace of the supply chain has increased. It's going to continue to increase. One of the things I really believe, and it's part of our digital transformation, is time's the enemy. Time's the enemy. We're really the person as a manufacturer who has to figure out how to carve out all the time we can so that consumers can have their demands met as quickly as possible. And so that's part of our digital strategy.
Look, I was going to ask, Rick, how big are each of the classes, or I should say classes, but when you talk about the number of modules these folks go through, is it 12 folks from your team, 24, 5?
45 at a time.
At a time.
Okay. Yeah, and we're going to run our 8th class starting in January. The second week will be in March. And Georgia Tech's been an absolutely great partner on this. They helped us co-develop all the modules. We teach some of them. Professors or industry experts will teach others. And, we've honed the content over the years as we saw what worked and what didn't work as well. We do a survey at the end of each of the classes, so we've continually improved it as we've gone through the years.
And that's employees from Clorox from all over the world, or
Correct.
just U.S.? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
No, it's a global cohort, and we make sure we'll have general managers, we'll have people from finance, R&D, sales, marketing, along with supply chain professionals. It makes for an incredible this is not a lecture series. This is, when I kick it off on Sunday night, I say you got to find your voice and find your voice early, because it's a no holds barred. Let's have the debate, let's have the discussion, and learn from each other as we go.
Love that.
That's great.
And I bet your team members love it too.
They do.
You got a lot of good feedback on it.
It's been fantastic.
Well, I bet investing in people like that's what people really want these days, and that's what I think. As we see, as we talk about talent development and so forth, each of these companies, it's almost like an arms race. You think about, who has the best development program and how can you show really a true path, for each employee at different companies. And I think that it sounds like your development program, does just that.
Yeah, that's right, Ben.
Well put. So Ben, keep going down that path, because I know we got some questions around overall talent picture, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, so, when we talk about development programs, we talked about, obviously, for your executive team and folks that you see as high worth individuals as far as, what they bring to the table from a value standpoint. The other parts of the company, not just, say, supply chain more so, are there different, other parts in manufacturing, I should say, but are there other parts or other development programs that are being instituted in the other parts of Clorox also?
Yeah, so we like the Strategy and Leadership Forum program so much, we developed another program called the Global Operations Leadership Forum. It's for the next couple of grade levels down. I don't remember the number of classes we've taught, but it's a 3-day in residency course. There's a lot of online content. And we've moved, there's 750 people in that group within the supply chain, and I believe about half of them have been through the program at this point in time. So it's another big investment that we've made in helping people understand how that end-to-end supply chain works and what their role should be in it.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds like, the Georgia Tech used to have a program, I think it was the Masters in International Logistics or something similar that started there, and I remember a couple people I knew that went through it, and it was a great program. But, to your standpoint, from your standpoint, it has to be catered to what each company, really needs for their employees, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. Yeah,
so I think that's why Georgia Tech really pivoted away from that program and did more executive education that was, again, much more catered to, say, Clorox's needs.
Yeah, that's right. And the way we developed it so about 80% of the content was not about us. We can talk about ourselves anytime, any day.
Right.
And the first couple classes really wanted to do that. They wanted to talk about the Clorox examples. This is really to give us all exposure to what's happening in industry, because many of us are trying to solve the same problems, and figuring out how others have done that is really instructive and valuable when you think about it in the context of your work.
But still relevant to your business, right?
Correct.
And because you're able to structure the coursework, then you can make it relevant even if it's not specific Clorox examples.
Schools
exactly
are
doing
right.
that more and more, and I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's learning on the job in a way, right? It's very relevant and very practical, but it gives you skills, and it's embedded in a way, with professional educators that you absorb and keep it, right?
That's right.
Not like sitting in a company meeting for 4 hours before you get it.
Those aren't.
Well, Rick, last question. We talked about, great wins, for this programming and this talent development, but if was there maybe a great story or maybe one thing you could point to that said, man, that really, here's a great story that came out of this talent development program, or I can point to this, example per se.
Well, there are multiple examples. You hear people referring to something they learned in the strategy and leadership forum with some problem they're trying to solve, some project they're on. One of the most interesting things that happened, I think it was year 3. It was right before the beginning of the first week in residency, and one of the former, previous class members saw me at the Bank of Elevators. He goes, "Hey, it's coming, isn't it? It's happening." I'm thinking, well, let's see, what is it? My wife's birthday, trash day. It's like, well, okay, John, I give up. What is it? He goes, next week. It's the first week of SLF, isn't it? He said, I wish I could go again. And that thought pervades through a lot of people who've had that experience.
Wow.
And so it's been a really neat program for us and a great way to help us develop our senior supply chain leaders.
Gives them ownership.
It does. It does. Yeah, and we're investing in them, and they recognize that. It's a material investment, and we're not alone in doing this, but not a lot of companies are, and so we feel it also differentiates us.
Oh, and it's great having an institution like Georgia Tech.
Right. When you're sending them to Georgia Tech, how much better could it be, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so now we want to shift gears. You've already mentioned the supply chain digital transformation. I know that's really important to the Clorox company, and you're making progress in that, as many companies are figuring that out, right, that journey. First, for starters, what are your objectives with supply chain digital transformation, and kind of what's your approach look like? How are you going about it?
Yeah, so they're really 3 things. First of all, we want to build a frictionless supply chain. This is really about taking out anything that slows us down. I mentioned before that time is the enemy, and so we've got a keen focus on how do we make ourselves faster, how do we make processes run smoother, run better. That's number 1. Number 2 is we don't take touches out. We don't want to touch paper, data, product, equipment, anything we can do to minimize touches. That's the second part. The third part is kind of a combination of the elimination of data latency, which will lead to us seeing our results more real time. Today, we don't have those tools and those capabilities, and so we're left wondering how well we perform for a certain period of time. And I think many others are in the same way. We're really trying to get the data latency out so we can see our results faster and adjust quicker.
Some of the folks we've had on the show and some of the articles we've been reading lately is how 5G is going to be able, on that third point, is going to be able to enable that better and allow folks to move faster. I love how you put time as enemy. It was kind of what the earlier podcast was about.
Andrew.
Have y'all, as you survey the 5G technology and it's already been rolled out here in Atlanta, how does that impact? Do y'all see that as a big enabler for your transformation efforts as well?
I believe it will be. At the moment, we're working on switching our transportation management system, changing our planning tool to a world-class planning capability. Mm-hmm. We're digitizing all of our quality data, so we're going to get away from the 1,000 fireproof file cabinets. Same for our safety, quality, and regulatory content, environmental content. That'll all get digitized. We've got an artificial intelligence solution we're working on in part of our order-to-cash process. And then we have just a number of other interesting ideas that are part of our roadmap over the next 2 or 3 years.
Outstanding.
Full disclosure, I'm a big fan, but you probably ought to be talking to him about that data stuff. It's important. Yeah.
It's a living, breathing thing.
Yes. So you've really and appreciate you sharing your approach as well as some of the projects for 2020 in particular. Just for that 12 months around the corner. What's the biggest project that's part of the transformation that will get accomplished?
There are 3 of them. And they're actually on top of each other, which is a little bit interesting and a little bit challenging. But we've got great people working on them. We've got really good integrators, third-party integrators. So we're changing our TMS. Mm-hmm. We're going live with that this quarter, and we'll bring it on region by region by region. Mm-hmm. And we're very excited about that. It's going to give us some incredible real-time capabilities that we haven't had in the past. So we know that's going to help us from a service and a cost perspective as well as taking time out of the equation. Second thing is, on our planning tool, we've already brought 2 businesses up. So we're going to continue that march every 6 to 8 weeks until all the businesses are on this planning tool. And that's a massive it's fundamentally changing the way that our demand and supply planners will work.
So are you going from spreadsheets to a system or one system to another?
We are. So we publicly announced we're using Kinaxis Rapid Response.
Okay.
And so we're moving to that. One of the biggest things, we haven't touched on it yet, but I think a lot of people are really quick to run to the tool sets. It's the shiny object in the corner. It's the neat, cool thing. It's different. The biggest issue and the biggest challenge in making all this stuff work is a change management approach. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people underestimate what's necessary there, kind of the leadership mindset and your colleague's skill set to be able to make the tool set work. If you don't have the mindset right and the skill set, you leave people behind, the tools will not be leveraged to their fullest capability. So it's really something we're focused on, is making sure we've got that change management component right as we go through the TMS change, the planning tool change, and the third one is our electronic quality management system and getting everything digitized.
That is, just as you lay it out, the level of change that your team is managing is it makes my eyes roll back.
In parallel, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's dramatic.
And if you touched on this already, I may have missed it, but is that change management part of that 22-week, is that a big element you bake into that 22-week program that you're doing with your senior leaders?
It is. It shows up in 3 or 4 different modules, different ways. And so they've all been getting a dose of that for some time now. But I would say in a transformation like this, where we're changing people's work, we're changing the tools, we're changing what's familiar and comfortable, this is the biggest challenge that we've undertaken. And, so far so good, but we know there's a lot more heavy lifting to go.
Outstanding. Well, we look forward to having you back on and talking through maybe a year down the road just how far you've come. Very ambitious. So let's go a little more broad, a little more agnostic here, because you're living it. A lot of us are writing about it and are talking about digital transformation. I mean, you and your team are living and breathing it. What do you think are some of the common misconceptions about digital transformation out in the marketplace in general?
Yeah, I'll come back to a lot of focus on the tool set. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets really, we had I've given a presentation a few different times, and I'll ask people like, what's the big so what about digital? They go, well, the tools. It's like, yeah, that's interesting, but that isn't it. It's the leadership mindset, thinking and acting like a digital thought leader every single day, figuring out how your work needs to change so you can set an example for the rest of the organization, and then helping everybody else come along, because today we have 5 generations in the workforce. Not everybody is as comfortable with this as all of us. And it's not always who you think. It's not always who you think. So you can't make assumptions about, where somebody sits from a generational standpoint and their comfort and dexterity in using tools like this. So we've really had to go, and we actually had our third party to come in and help us develop some personas so we could speak to people about the change management that they're going to need to undergo, really kind of market the message to them. in a way that they would hear it and understand it, because you want to eliminate fear and you want to generate excitement. And so that's been our approach around change management. I think that's a common thing where people get so fired up about the tools, rightfully so, but they miss out on the other elements that will actually help them be successful with the tools.
The effort tends to go away once it's plugged in. Implementation is done. We're done, right? Everything will be better.
Wonderful.
That's right.
And
That's right. It starts.
There is a long process, right? Because adoption is difficult, as you were talking about. It depends on the level of adoption that an individual can undertake, right? And then when you implement a change like this, it starts to uncover problems, opportunities in the other parts of the business, and you have to be prepared for that.
Right.
Yeah, that's right, Greg.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so as we wind down with Rick McDonald here, Rick, how can folks learn more about the Clorox company? I'm sure you are hiring. You have all these exciting initiatives. Where's a couple places folks can learn more?
So for hiring, anybody interested in working with us, Indeed.com is where we post all of our jobs. So feel free to go there and have a look. We've got an office in Alpharetta. We've got another one in Kennesaw. We've got manufacturing plants around the world, and we'd love to talk to interested people. Relative to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Clorox Co., CLOROXCO is where you can find us.
Outstanding. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Don't go anywhere. Looking forward to you piggybacking on some of our conversations we're about to have with Paul Noble, but really appreciate what you shared, Rick McDonald, VP Global Operations with the Clorox Company. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, so now we're going to switch over again to one of our favorite guests and friends of the show, Paul Noble, founder and CEO at Verusen. Paul, good afternoon again.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good to see you. Thanks for not disappearing earlier.
Thanks for sticking around.
So, our listeners have heard you've been on the show, and Darryl Lou's been on the show a couple times, and they've had a chance to kind of learn more about you. But in a nutshell, for starters, tell us more about yourself and kind of where you grew up and all.
Sure. So, been in Atlanta for about 7 years. Grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Went to school in Tennessee at Lincoln Memorial University. Played basketball there. And so
that's why he loves basketball. Don't challenge him to a game.
Indeed.
I was a shooting guard and a small forward.
Really?
So I stayed out around the arc and.
So you actually had tall people on your team.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I played like power forward, and I'm only about 6'2".
Yeah.
We could have a Supply Chain City team here, man.
Yeah.
I just get the water and fix coffee.
Let's go roll out the ball.
So, what school in Tennessee?
Lincoln Memorial University.
Okay.
Harvard of the Cumberland Gap.
Harvard.
And
that's well done.
So went down there. Spent 4 great years, met a lot of great people, and then went back to Cleveland and started my career with the Sherwin-Williams Company. Spent 12 years there, spent most of my time within supply chain and selling into the industrial manufacturing sector. A book of brands that many people don't know within Sherwin-Williams was Diversified Brands. Now they're Consumer Group, and we sold through distribution partners like Grainger, Fastenal, HD Supply, those types of things. So a lot of maintenance, repair operations type stuff. And that brought me here to Atlanta when I was running our Eastern U.S. group and saw a lot of things that I felt could be changed as it pertained to how the different parts of the supply chain work together, how data was harnessed for the materials in supply chain. So led me to look into a different way, right? Greg, you know how this goes. When you see opportunities and
if it ain't broke, break it.
Yeah,
right.
And so the time was right for me, and where I was in a great ecosystem, a great environment to go try it. So founded the company a couple of years ago, found our way, and today we are a supply chain intelligence company for materials. So we help global organizations better understand the materials they use, both on an indirect, ultimately direct basis, and kind of up the nodes of the supply chain, but start typically with indirect for a handful of reasons. But really understanding the data that lives in their current systems, which is usually this Frankenstein of systems.
17 platforms.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, especially in today's world where companies grow by acquisition. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You wind up with this
80 ERP systems.
This thing is called, I think Darryl the other day was saying, we call it red, they call it dark pink, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, salmon.
And we manage it as this name, but our supplier calls it this name, and their supplier calls it this name, and so you end up getting the same material represented 100 different ways in 100 different systems. You stack processes on top of that, manufacturing facilities on top of that. You get a bunch of silos and a bunch of disparate data that gets buried and is not really well understood, right? And that leads to a bunch of different inefficiencies from a byproduct standpoint.
Yes.
So that's really what we help organizations target, is going in, understanding the data, and then delivering that through byproducts of better understood data.
Real quick, Greg, I know you got some questions for Paul.
Yeah.
Just for our audience's benefit, Verusen, Verusen.
Correct.
Yeah, and a pretty cool logo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Flash that logo on cam. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, they've got
the right spot.
They've got really nice swag.
Yes.
That's right. Great product also. But
my dad owns a promotional products company, so I have the
is
inside
that
track.
right?
To
Very
SCNR.
nice.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
So, so that's what we attack. Essentially, have developed this platform, and so we understood the business problem. I lived the business problem, and spent many years on how should we attack it. So really took technology to the problem rather than the other way around. Right?
Building a hammer and look for a nail.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So we said, how do we harness all this data and make every decision count? Because there's thousands, tens of thousands, if not millions of decisions throughout the global supply chain every day for every organization. And so we developed this platform we've been working on for the past couple of years with customers and service providers that takes multiple AI models to remove all the heavy lifting, go into a supply chain, whatever your current supply chain stack is, understand materials, the dirty data, right? And
You mean there's some of that?
There's a lot of it, right? Too much of it. But that's where a little bit where we're different, right? So we look at, the traditional model is, all right, I have to cleanse my data in isolation to drive business results. We've developed this procedure that allows us to go in, structure a lot of unstructured data across an enterprise, understand the data, deliver fast results, speed, scale, accuracy. That's why we use AI, is to make sure that we can use the expertise from an organization like Clorox and all the knowledge that lives in the heads of individuals and doesn't live in the system, is very labor intensive to maintain and transfer to the system, allow them to be presented with intelligence and train the system accordingly and get smarter and scale this across their operations. So really about how we treat data, and that is really this foundational aspect. And then the byproducts off of that, which are vendor optimization, procurement optimization, and this transition to Industry X.0 or 4.0, however you want to talk about it.
I got to see what Verusen does the other day, and they combine AI with AI, artificial intelligence with actual intelligence. What they do is they provide a recommendation that then a human being is the final authority on. Is that a fair estimation?
Yeah, it's simple as that, because there's a lot of, and you've probably seen it, Rick, where you know what you want to do, but to actually get it done with different parts of the business, procurement, operations, it's often difficult to do. And there's a lot of other things, again, to that point of maybe 5 to 10% of what goes into a decision actually lives in the system. So if you're only using bad data and elements in the system to drive results, chain, min, max, safety stock levels, and you're going to get pushback because people at the field level know what's going on, bones are buried, all that type of stuff. So what we do is we essentially give them recommendations, allow them, and that's where we're different from an optimization standpoint, and present, here's the information. If you have something else that's important to tell us, please disagree and let the system know, and then it kind of just creates this consistent feedback loop around data harmonization across those sites or those instances and sources, and combining that with driving what is first a lot of reduction in opportunity
I keep going real quick. I keep going back to that Coca-Cola commercial. Every time I hear the harmonization piece, I have that image of everyone singing on the hill. It's like a supply chain nirvana. I don't know.
Well, there are a lot of Asians in Verusen because we've had Daryl on the show as well, and he likes democratization, right? Transformations. You guys do a lot of Asians.
Yeah.
And you know, I can see the benefit of what you're doing. I mean, ultimately, I saw this on the screen, if I've got 5 descriptions that equal one item, imagine what that might mean. And you probably don't have to imagine, Rick, but imagine what that means in a facility somewhere. That means that in a facility somewhere, there are at least 3 of those in different boxes, right, that are essentially the same product, right? And I again come from retail and distribution, so I've seen a lot of that as well.
And as importantly, I was just going to say, sorry, it's not only what's inside your own shop, but it's also what's at the retailer. Their descriptions, the cleanliness of their data, their ability to feed that to you and take your updates, making all that synchronized. That's a challenge.
Yeah, and that's an important thing that we're trying to lay is this more, the vision of the company is this intelligent, connected supply chain. All of the data that you want and need to harness lives in your supply chain as an organization like Clorox. So you should be receiving that and be able to receive that in a more connected and intelligent way.
Timely.
So we kind of lay brick by brick and lead these organizations to theirs is our approach,
and the
which
system
is a little bit different.
From the interactions that it gets from the humans.
Correct.
Right? So it continues to make extrapolations based on what it learns from the response that it gets from the humans as well.
Yeah, so you have those multiple AI models, each one doing a lot of heavy lifting from what is traditionally manual processes or infrequently looked at information, and every decision hits a neural net. So it allows each facility, each business unit, each organization to learn and apply those learnings appropriately.
So what I love about what you've done is you lived the problem, as you said, and you developed a solution from your expertise in the problem. So it seems to me like you get involved in a lot of aspects of the business. So tell us, I mean, you're founder and CEO, right? But based on the kind of business when you're living startup life, based on the kind of skills that you have or whatever, can be a very different role, even though it has the same title.
Yeah, chief everything.
Chief everything officer. So give us an idea of what your day is.
You're not staying on the perimeter hitting threes all the time. You're probably in the trenches.
Yeah, he's point guard and shooting guard.
No, we got a lot of good point guards that can tee me up now, which is good. We built a great team, so a lot of great engineers, data scientists, great CTO in place, and then obviously you guys have met Daryl.
Yes.
So I come from a sales and marketing background, so I tend to lean there. I'm comfortable there and get a lot of heavily involved in customer interactions and obviously in the game we're in, and as a venture-backed startup, there's a lot of interactions in terms of advocating for what we're doing from a vision standpoint, fundraising. Always,
which you're doing now, right? I mean,
we're always fundraising. Always 6 months to a year schedule. But and we do that for specific reasons as we're going. The key milestones we're looking to hit are important to our vision. Yes, there are certain things, revenue and all those types of things, but it all builds toward how can we get to the vision faster, and that's why we partner with great venture partners and investors like we have, great channel partners, and great customers that allow us to all come together, sit at the same table, and innovate and take advantage of key problems, not to be duplicative of things that exist today, but to fill the gaps in how we can really, be that intelligence of record that connects the dots moving forward across their systems.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So it's something new every day. Learned a lot through trial and error, and
I empathize, man. I'm right there with you.
And we've survived and are really hitting a good velocity right now. Love where our team's at, where we're going, where we're growing, and both.
So tell us a little bit about that.
And then customers. Yeah.
What's 2020 look like for you guys?
Yeah, 2020 we're right now kind of heads down. We're seeing a lot of interesting use cases that lead us to our vision faster. So we're looking to prove those out. Still going to be hiring early 2020 some more engineers and building out the business side of things from a sales and marketing perspective. And then really preparing to pour gas on the fire. So we'll be looking mid-2020 to be targeting a Series A fundraise, which is exciting, and really take what we've learned over the past year and a half or a couple of years and apply that towards really transformationally bringing a solution to our customers that solves some major pain points and problems.
So when you contemplated this company and the solution for it, I know there had to be some sort of surprise. You saw something that you didn't expect to see when you applied it to the marketplace. Anything jump out at you?
Well, it's completely, we had this vision of a connected supply chain, but we were very much more supplier focused to start. That's where I came from. That's what we saw. And then, as we joked, I think prior to being on air, pivoted to where we are today and began building this and assembling our team and the technology and understanding, what the market needed. And again, how can we be transformational to that? So, going from a supplier sales enablement platform, which was wrong place, wrong time, a little too early, maybe come back to that and swimming upstream against the data problem. We went to the source, to someone like Clorox that has systems of record, uses the product, and can then connect back downstream to the different parts of the supply chain. We saw that opportunity and an interesting way to do it, and have just been confirming and building the product ever since.
So you have got we had Daryl Liu on the show. You've already mentioned a couple times now.
Yeah, he's great.
He is
the
one of a, that's right. One of a kind. He's also a scientific connoisseur of donuts. And
he is.
What I mean by that is he takes a scientific approach to measuring the quality of all kinds of donuts. Love his website. So you keep the donut pipeline flowing into the Verusen team, right?
Yeah, we do. We do. And
funny, there weren't any donuts there when I was there.
I feel like this would have been a really good segment.
Well, so
I need to live that part of our culture.
Yes.
Well, we brought the donut book. Recall, right?
Yeah.
So Greg's referencing your new digs at ATDC, right?
We are. Yeah, moved into a new space and be expanding at ATDC over the next near future. And a great environment, though. Do a lot of things that you talked about, Rick, from relationship with Georgia Tech. We embrace and love that aspect of being a part of ATDC, being in Tech Square, relationships that we lean on to greater understand. We know, we're building technology to allow the expertise of complex global supply chains to be able to harness what they know they want to do, but just maybe can't do it from a technology standpoint. But we want to understand what the best practices are. So we lean on the Supply Chain Logistics Institute, Tim Brown, and all the great talent there,
Georgia Tech,
and Georgia Tech, and lean on specific things that have been tried and what we can implement into a product that can help, again, move things faster, drive things faster, less touches, less processes, and present intelligence and decisions to be made to individuals across a lot of disciplines within organizations.
Love it. In fact, Tim Brown's coming on the show. One of the numerous things he does is sit on the board for the Reverse Logistics Association. Right. So he'll be on in
he's been a great supporter of ours, and really look forward to how that's going to help us grow as we continue to build our team.
Yep. So before I ask you, did you have one more question before I ask him?
I want to see what Ben wants to ask.
Well, I was just going to say, of course, the Reverse Logistics Association, we're lucky to have them based here in Atlanta.
Yep.
Of course, Tim Brown and Georgia Tech, here in Atlanta as well. We were just talking about them earlier on the show. And additionally, ATDC, something we mentioned also. For some of our folks who aren't, our listeners here who might not be from the Atlanta area, could you tell some of our listeners a little more about ATDC and kind of how it's helped you guys?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we've been at the ATDC, which is the Advanced Technology Development Center, for the past couple of years, and we got some
progress.
Making progress.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Can hear it, the progress. But it's a great environment. So as a new entrepreneur, first time or repeat. or cereal, you have a lot of the things that can disrupt you essentially in your process.
Right.
A lot of resources available and a lot of resources to lean on there. So we went from a little closet and a team of one to going and growing. Now they have educate, accelerate, and signature level. We're at the signature level now, and it's they're a key part of our team. Really from across the board to the Industry Connect that Corbett, I think that's been on the show, is that runs and introduces us to great potential partners like Clorox or any other, Atlanta base. And actually, they come from all over the world.
You were just
to
in New
Georgia
York.
Tech, yeah. And
also,
then,
right?
Yeah, and then we were just with a bunch of other great founders up in New York and Boston, showcasing our with Ben.
Ben, that's
Ben
right.
was there as well. Joined us in Boston.
Yeah, fresh off his honeymoon.
And it's just really a key part of our team. It's a great place to be, and we'll stay there as long as they'll have us.
Yeah,
the dynamic of having other founders and early stage companies, plus the entrepreneurs and residents, people who've done it before, where you can just step in their office and
helps keep you focused on the business, right?
Yeah.
So it definitely is a help.
So you referenced a couple. So Darryl Liu's been on the show for our listeners, episode 207 and episode 154, and also Corbett Gilliam, Corporate Development Manager with ATDC, was also on with Darryl on episode 154, if you want to go back and listen.
And Blaine Malore actually was with Clorox, one of our previous
episodes.
That is right.
Also. Right. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for connecting dots. All right, so where can folks learn more about Verusen?
So, Verusen.com is an easy spot to come get us or come see us at the ATDC. Aubrey will point you in our direction. Or on social at Verusen_AI, really across every platform.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
What about you?
And then I'm at Paul J. Noble.
The one and only.
A great follow on Twitter.
Yes.
I might add.
Yeah.
Well, and Verusen's blog. I love the blog articles y'all come out with. I think one of the last ones that I dove into was a Halloween one about scary inventory, I think.
Yeah.
I can't. My three kids scramble my brain sometimes, but great blog. Big thanks for coming on. Paul Noble, founder and CEO at Verusen. Really enjoyed you and Rick both sharing kind of, I don't want to start up early stage, whatever Verusen, whatever bucket y'all,
early stage is fair.
I like early stage.
Growth stage.
Early stage too. Growth stage,
Sure.
But kind of seeing it from your perspective and seeing it from, the global behemoth that the Clorox company is. Very interesting conversation. So thanks for y'all's time. We're going to wrap up today on some upcoming events that we're going to be streaming live from.
All right. Are we doing speed round this time?
Yeah, kind of abbreviated, succinct round.
Yep.
But for starters, of course, Rick and Paul have shared where you can learn more about the Clorox company and Verusen. And Ben, where can folks learn more about the chamber?
It's MetroAtlantaChamber.com.
Outstanding, and the chamber, of course, is a huge resource for not just supply chain, certainly supply chain, but across all the neat things that make up the Metro Atlanta community.
Yeah.
All right, so if you can't find what you're looking for at those resources, and if you've heard something here today you want more information on, shoot an email to our RCMO, Amanda@supplychainnowradio.com, and we will try to serve as a resource for you. All right, so we're going to kick things off. We're here throughout the end of the year. We get a chance to catch up on, I think we got 20 episodes. They're still whip, right? Yeah, it's crazy. Good stuff. But what's our first event in January?
So that's the CSCMP Atlanta Roundtable, January 25th.
15th.
15th.
Close.
Sorry.
Plus 10. That's been the theme today. January 15th.
AtlantaCSCMP.org.
That's right. Open to the public. NASTRAC is sending a member of their leadership team out to talk about regulation changes in the transportation industry and what it means for your company. It will be a great event. We're going to be interviewing board members and maybe the keynote. We'll see. But January 15th, AtlantaCSCMP.org. And then we've already mentioned Reverse.
Vegas, baby.
Yeah,
Reverse Logistics
we've
Association.
We've got Tony Sciarrotta Tattoos. He is the most mentioned individual, I think, in the last 3 months for our podcast.
When he does silly stuff like go shopping on Black Friday, you got to mention him. So that's February 4th to the 6th in Vegas, RLA.org.
And to Ben's point, it is that is a growing, a fastly growing global organization that's based right here in Atlanta, and it's focused on a white-hot component of end-to-end supply chain. Everyone's looking for ways of, and clearly Clorox is doing some really cool things, but sustainability, reverse logistics, handling returns,
right,
circular economy, you name it. It's companies still, even some world-class companies are struggling with their approach. And RLA is a great clearinghouse there, rla.org.
There's a lot to learn there.
Huge, yeah.
And then our friends at Modex, right? So that's March 9th to the 12th at the Georgia World Congress Center, modexshow.com.
Free to attend.
35,000 of your closest friends.
That's largest supply chain show in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Man, I like that. It's kind of like a Ringling Brothers feel to it.
That's right.
I like that.
It is when you get there because they literally build little factories and little warehouses.
Yeah. So no one's swinging from trapezes? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't see any of that, but I wasn't looking that close.
Right. ModexShow.com. And they're hosting, we're really excited about, and Ben as a partner. So Supply Chain Now Radio is partnering once again with the Metro Atlanta Chamber, Apex Atlanta, and CSCMP to conduct our second year Atlanta Supply Chain Awards. On March 10th with Modex as the backdrop.
Yes,
they've been great partners.
It's a big deal. Yeah. And I mean, you're going to say this too, Scott, but I cannot reiterate how important it is. We were just talking about the awards earlier. Congrats to Verusen. Obviously, you're being nominated. Yeah. Definitely going to nominate our friends over here at Clorox. I mean, Rick, that's a very exciting initiative from a sustainability standpoint for you guys, and also from an educational talent development standpoint, too, that we talked about earlier. So we will definitely get that nomination in for you.
Yeah. And that's important. I'm glad you brought that up because the 29-county Metro Atlanta area is huge. And really the way we've approached the awards last year and when we approached it this year is you don't have to be headquartered here. As long as you have some sort of presence here.
Yes.
We've got, I think, 14 different categories. We just added one in the last couple of weeks, Technology Impact Award, right?
Yeah.
Which opens up kind of a whole new spin on all the technology platforms, innovations that are
better
found
be
across
producing
supply
results. That's the way.
Yes. Good point. Atlanta, supplychainawards.com to nominate, to register, to sponsor. It's all right there laid out, and we're excited about that March 10th, 2020. Finally, AME Atlanta, the Lean Summit is coming here May 4th through the 7th. For folks that may not know AME, the Association for Manufacturing Excellence, outstanding national organization, very passionate about continuous improvement and manufacturing best practices. They're bringing their regional Lean Summit here, and we'll be streaming live the evening of May 4th.
4th, right.
Yeah, talking with plant managers and VP Ops and a lot of folks doing some neat things
in
manufacturing.
We'll be talking.
Yeah, maybe. Depends how that week's going.
Okay.
Just kidding. All right, so big thanks to our guests here today. Enlightening conversation. I mean, we could have easily made this a 6-hour episode, especially with what both of y'all and your organizations are doing. Big thanks to Rick. Excuse me, Rick. I'm so
choked
up,
Rick. Yeah. That was an inspiring discussion. Got him all choked up.
Rick McDonald, Vice President, Global Operations at Clorox. Paul Noble, founder and CEO at Verusen. I finally figured out where that mute button is.
Yeah.
On behalf of the whole Supply Chain City crew, Ben Harris, of course, Greg White, Will Haraway, who's not with us here today. He's got a big concert coming up.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. But to our audience, be sure to check out other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. Find us where, Greg?
YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of our entire team, Scott Luton here, wishing you a wonderful week ahead, and we will see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks, everybody.